huge, is it? We see patterns being repeated, companies involving themselves that were supposedly against the entire space for many years, right? Everything is changing. The market is different this time. Really? Well, consider this. First of all, when it comes to markets and things like prices, patterns break, maths don't. That's why if you're trading or even investing, you should learn about how to trade properly or invest properly using the highly relevant maths, which are volatility, entropy, probability, and statistics. Looking for patterns where they don't exist or where they're completely meaningless will only get you wrecked. So if you think that we're repeating now what happened in 2020 or 2017 or 2012, I hate to break it to you, you're wrong. All of those were in fact not identical. And while you can say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, yeah, that may be the case for certain things like human behavior or historical events, conflicts, resolution, economics in general as a broad paintbrush. But it certainly is not the case for trading or investing in specific assets or even broad asset classes. Okay? That's number one. So there is no historical repetition of what happened in previous cycles, if you want to call them that. There's just what's happening now. And if you're looking to the past to find what's going to happen in the future, you better be looking at the highly relevant maths as I explained. Number two, companies are involving themselves in the space where they said they were always against it. And first of all, if anybody's surprised by this, I have a bridge to sell you in South Dakota that leads to a lovely beachfront property. Now, of course, companies, large ones like banks and others, are involving themselves in this space. Do you know why? Because they see a profit to be made. And as I said recently, they want your Bitcoin. They want your Solana. They want your Ethereum. They want your Binance, whatever coin token. They want your Litecoin. They want all of it. Did I say Solana twice? They want your money. They want your assets. And that's why they're coming for them hard. It's not an accident that these companies have been buying through ETFs and directly. For years they've been buying directly, even if quietly, crypto assets. Because they know it's the future of the transfer of values over the internet. And they fear being left behind, or they feared being left behind, so they jumped into it, even if quietly, and for many years have been getting more and more involved, buying and holding and preparing to sell to people at high prices and then buying again at lower prices. And they've been doing this for years. And I've been telling you this for years. And we at Alpha Trading have been telling you this for years. Right? It's not a surprise, and it's not new to anyone who actually pays attention to the space. Obviously, companies want in on the future of money. Like money, they're huge companies. Large banks are in the business of making money. They're not in the business of losing it. And when they do lose it, they're not in the business of getting blamed. So they will absolutely find a scapegoat for when things go wrong. Whether they blame a consulting company or market forces or government regulation or those terrible pesky retail traders and regular investors, they'll blame someone. However, they still want your crypto. They desperately want your Bitcoin. They desperately want all the assets you hold. If you think that sounds nuts, well, you don't have to be a genius to look at what happened. In 2017, on the very day that shorting crypto became available, margin trading became available to institutions, that happened to be the all-time high at the time, 20,000. What happened on that day? Well, they shorted the living daylights out of Bitcoin, and it plummeted and went down for the year, for an entire year, pretty much to the day, before it dropped to the low at around 3,200 or so, following the whole Bitcoin ABC and Bitcoin SV battle for silly nonsense. So don't be surprised that big banks and other institutionals are getting in on this space, because it's been not even news for years. This is almost humdrum at this point. We know they want it, right? Anyway, that's the second point. Third of all, if you think that this market is even done, following some silly pattern or whatever, and is going to repeat what happened in 2017 because some companies or governments are suddenly supportive of a thing, or some politicians are suddenly supportive of a thing. Remember, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And again, I've been saying this for a long time, that crypto has already been in the then you win space since before 2020's halving. Okay? Arguably, it already won in 2019. Why? Because that's when we saw actual attempts at fighting Bitcoin and crypto. That's when we saw politicians trying to take Bitcoin to task and saying nonsense like this is bad for the economy and everything else. They were trying to defend the useless fiat that keeps falling in purchasing power, and say that, crypto is the root of all evil and is only used by criminals, and fiat is this holy grail that's never used by criminals, which is insane, because historically there's only been crypto in any practical sense for 15 years or so. Yes, technically crypto and blockchains have existed for far longer, going back to the 80s or so. However, they never were used as a practical currency until Bitcoin came out. And even then, it took some time for some adoption to happen and for the pizza to be bought on May 22nd, on the famous Bitcoin Pizza Day, which is actually coming up in a couple of days. It wasn't until then, really, and even though there were transactions before that, I purchased things with crypto before Bitcoin Pizza Day, but I was purchasing things, through barter or swaps, or making payments to people in what was then considered a useless currency, except the very visionary people that I happened to be working with, who understood that it was worth accepting, 1,000 Bitcoin for a computer fan, or, computer CPUs, or to write some content, to accept, 100 Bitcoin or whatever it might be, to write an article or whatever it might be. Back in those days, those 100 Bitcoin were worth practically nothing, less than the electricity it cost to mine them. However, very visionary people understood this and were willing to work to do that kind of exchange. But in any case, once the crypto actually became active as a currency, in the sense that people were actually trading it on markets, etc., then we saw an explosion, relatively, in terms of its value. And so to say that fiat is a threat, fiat is threatened by crypto, simply because crypto has value in the last 15 years, and that crypto somehow was responsible for all criminal use of money, when in fact historically it's been only fiat that was available, and before that money that was backed by assets like gold that was available is just a bloody joke and makes no sense. And anybody who falls for that is kidding themselves, and you're missing the bigger picture of what crypto actually offers and delivers. So don't be fooled by it. Don't get suckered by the people that tell you that crypto has no value and that crypto is only used by criminals. That is just pure nonsense. It's nonsense driven by people who have an agenda to protect fiat, either because their job is on the line or their wealth is on the line and they feel they've missed the boat and they would do anything they can to destroy crypto, but they've already lost and they know it, because the rantings we see these days and all the attempts at regulating and taxing the daylights out of crypto are merely proof, not evidence, proof that the government sees, every government sees, it has an opportunity to rake in buku bucks from taxes and regulations and other policies, and that is the only time that they will ever care about any new industry, is when they see they have the opportunity to make money from it. Until then, they didn't care about crypto. They just, positioned themselves in ways to defend their corporate donors, like all the credit card companies, right, and all the big banks who said, no, you can't like crypto. We can't tell people to adopt it because that'll be bad for our business. So the politicians, got on their knees and did what they had to do to get their lovely fiat donors to give them more money for their campaigns and talk badly about crypto. And to this day, they do the same thing, but only they're trying to say, we have to regulate this in order to implement it. Aha. So before it was the root of all evil, but now you want to regulate it. Well, if it was the root of all evil, why would you regulate it? Why wouldn't you just outright ban it? They don't outright ban it because they know it's the future of value transfer, whether they like it or not, and there's nothing they can do about it. And if they do ban it, it's only going to hurt the economy. And that is exactly why Bitcoin and crypto are not going to be banned, and in fact have already won, period. So with that in mind, remember, what we're seeing now is nothing new. We're literally seeing the play out. Stay tuned and happy Bitcoining. Cheers.